Matthew 20. For the kingdom of heaven is like unto a man that is an householder, which went out early in the morning to hire laborers into his vineyard. And when he had agreed with the laborers for a penny a day, he sent them into his vineyard. And he went out about the third hour, and saw others standing idle in the marketplace, and said unto them, Go ye also into the vineyard, and whatsoever is right I will give you. And they went their way. Again he went out, about the 6th, 9th hour, and did likewise. And about the 11th hour he went out, and found others standing idle, and saith unto them, Why stand ye here all the day idle? They say unto him, Because no man hath hired us. He saith unto them, Go ye also into the vineyard. And whatsoever is right, that shall ye receive. So when even was come, the Lord of the vineyard saith unto his steward, All the laborers, and give them their hire, beginning from the last unto the first. And when they came that were hired about the 11th hour, they received every man a penny. When the first came, they supposed that they should have received more, and they likewise received every man a penny. And when they had received it, they murmured against the good man of the house, saying, These last have wrought but 1 hour, and thou hast made them equal unto us, which have borne the burden and heat of the day. But he answered one of them and said, Friend, I do thee no wrong. Didst not thou agree with me for a penny? Take that thine is, and go thy way. I will give unto this last, even as unto thee. Is it not lawful for me to do what I will with mine own? Is thine eye evil because I am good? So the last shall be first, and the first last. For many be called, the few chosen. And Jesus, going up to Jerusalem, took the 12 disciples apart in the way, and said unto them, Behold, we go up to Jerusalem, and the Son of Man shall be betrayed unto the chief priests, and unto the scribes, and they shall condemn him to death, and shall deliver him to the Gentiles to mock, to scourge, to crucify him. And the third day he shall rise again. Then came to him the mother of Zebedee's children with her sons, worshipping him and desiring a certain thing of him. And he said unto her, What wilt thou? She saith unto him, Grant that these my 2 sons may sit, one on thy right hand, the other on the left, in thy kingdom. But Jesus answered and said, Ye know not what ye ask. Are ye able to drink of the cup that I shall drink of, and to be baptized with the baptism that I am baptized with? They say unto him, Ye are able. And he saith unto them, Ye shall drink indeed of my cup, and be baptized with the baptism that I am baptized with. But to sit on my right hand and on my left is not mine to give, but shall be given to them for whom it is prepared of my Father. When the 10 heard it, they were moved with indignation against the 2 brethren. Jesus called them unto him and said, Ye know that the princes of the Gentiles exercise dominion over them, and they that are great exercise authority upon them. It shall not be so among you. But whosoever will be great among you, let him be your minister. And whosoever will be chief among you, let him be your servant. Even as the Son of Man came not to be ministered unto, but to minister, and to give his life a ransom for many. And as they departed from Jericho, a great multitude followed him. And behold, 2 blind men sitting by the wayside, when they heard that Jesus passed by, cried out, saying, Have mercy on us, O Lord, thou Son of David. And the multitude rebuked them, because they should hold their peace. But they cried the more, saying, Have mercy on us, O Lord, thou Son of David. And Jesus stood still, and called them, and said, What will ye that I shall do unto you? They say unto him, Lord, that our eyes may be opened. So Jesus had compassion on them, and touched their eyes. And immediately their eyes received sight. And they followed him.
When Jesus died on the cross, dozens of dead came out of their tombs, perhaps hundreds, men and women who had been buried for years, decades, centuries on the outskirts of Jerusalem. and they walked through the streets. People saw them. Entire families recognized them. Matthew chapter 27 verses 52 and 53 records it as a historical fact without adornments, almost in passing. And yet, there are three things in that passage that most Christians never stop to read with attention. Three details that change everything. The first is the exact moment in which those saints came out of the tombs. The second is the Greek word that Matthew chose to describe them, a word that most translations flatten and make invisible. And the third is the reason why only Matthew tells this episode, while Mark, Luke, and John leave it completely out. If you stay until the end of this video, you are going to understand who those resurrected dead were, why they had to wait before coming out, and why this passage is probably the most impressive and forgotten proof of the New Testament. This is going to change the way you read Matthew 27 forever. If this is your first time here, do not worry about subscribing now. Stay. See if what you are going to listen to really brings you something. If at the end of the video you feel that this helped you see the Bible differently, you decide there calmly. And if you are already part of the family of this channel, leave the little like. It is not a favor. It is what helps these videos reach more people. If this adds to you, leave the like. If not, no problem. Let us go. It is Friday, 3 in the afternoon. The sky has been dark for 3 hours over Jerusalem, as if the sun had died before the man who hangs from the wood. The Roman soldiers are covered with dust and dried sweat. The priests have already returned to the temple. The crowd is dispersing. And then, in the silence that follows the last cry of Jesus, everything begins to tremble. The earth moves. The rocks split open. The veil of the temple tears in two from top to bottom. And on the outskirts of the city, on the slopes that surround Jerusalem, where the Jews buried their dead in caves carved into limestone, something happens that no Roman and no priest expected. The tombs open, by themselves, without anyone touching them. And inside those tombs, there is movement. Matthew writes verse 52 with almost surgical precision. He says that the tombs were opened, and that many bodies of saints who had slept were raised. Then, in verse 53, he adds a detail that changes everything. He says that those dead did not come out of the tombs on Friday. They came out after the resurrection of Jesus. Not on Friday, not on Saturday, Sunday, 3 days later. And that means something brutal. Those men and women were from Friday until Sunday with the tombs open, visible, motionless, on the boundary between death and life, waiting. Waiting for what? For whom? Why is Matthew the only one of the 4 evangelists who tells this scene? Why does Mark not record it? Why does Luke omit it? Why does John, who was there, right there at the foot of the cross, not write a single word about the dead who walked through Jerusalem days later? And the most disturbing question of all, who were those saints? Abraham, Moses, David, the prophets, your great-great-grandfather who was righteous and God-fearing. Matthew does not give names. The early church did not agree, and for 2,000 years, theologians discussed this passage without reaching a clean conclusion. There is a hidden truth in a single Greek word, the word saints. When you discover what it really meant, what that technical term carried in the 1st century, you stop seeing this episode as a biblical curiosity, and you begin to see it for what it was. It was not a curiosity. It was a declaration. It was a war. It was the first battle that death lost in a public, massive, irrefutable way. To understand why those men and women resurrected, you first have to understand where they were buried. And this most modern preachings do not tell you, because they take for granted that you already know. But you do not know. And when you understand it, the entire passage takes on another dimension. In Jerusalem, in the 1st century, the dead were not buried as now. There were no cemeteries with tombs in the ground. There were no coffins under the earth. The dead were placed in caves carved into limestone on the slopes of the hills that surround the city. Caves with deep niches called kokim, where the cadaver rested wrapped in linen with spices for a whole year. After that year, when the flesh had already decomposed, the bones were collected and stored in a stone box called an ossuary, a word that comes from the Latin ossuarium, container of bones, and the cave was left ready to receive the next member of the family. These caves were sealed with a stone that covered the entrance. The vast majority used square stones or flat covers carved to fit exactly into the hollow of the cave. Only a few tombs, those of the wealthiest families, used circular stones that rolled inside a channel carved into the rock. Modern archaeologists, after excavating more than 1,000 tombs around Jerusalem, found barely 6 with circular stones. 6. Those of Queen Helena of Adiabene, those of the family of Herod, some in the valley of Kidron. The rest, the caves of common righteous people, the local prophets, the neighborhood rabbis, the God-fearing fathers of families, all used flat stones that weighed between 100 and 300 kilos, designed so that not even 2 men together could move them with ease. Now think about this. Matthew says that many tombs were opened, in the plural, many, and it was an earthquake that opened them. The flat stones jumped from their place. The few circular stones rolled by themselves in their channels. The caves of the righteous, the prophets, the matriarchs, all opened at the same time, in a matter of seconds, while a body on a cross stopped breathing. And here enters the first detail that most do not notice. In Hebrew and in Greek, the verb used for open tombs has a connotation that in English is lost. It is not only to open as to open a door, it is to expose, to reveal, to bring to light what was hidden. As when a judge opens an archive case, as when an investigator unearths evidence, those tombs were not opened by accident. They were opened as accusation, as proof, as if creation itself was saying, look, this is what he achieved. But still no one came out from inside. That is the strange thing. The cave is open, the stone is rolled away, the body is visible, but it does not move, it does not get up. 2 nights and 1 whole day pass with the door open and no one comes out. Why? Matthew writes his gospel for a very specific audience. Jews who know the Hebrew scriptures, Jews who know who Abraham, Samuel, David were, Jews who knew exactly what the word saints meant when it appeared in a sepulchral context. That is why, when Matthew chooses the words of verse 52, he chooses them with surgical precision. He says like this, and the tombs were opened, and many bodies of saints who had slept were raised. The word that is translated as saints in English is, in the original Greek, hagioi, plural of hagios. And here comes the first twist. Hagios does not mean good people. It does not mean religious persons. It does not mean what the word saint tends to mean in modern English, where we call saint someone who had an exemplary life. In the Greek of the New Testament, hagios is a technical term. It means consecrated. It means set apart for God. It means belonging to the sacred realm. In the Jewish context of the 1st century, when a Jewish writer used hagioi in the plural, referring to the dead, he was citing a specific tradition, a tradition that comes from the book of Daniel. Daniel chapter 7 speaks of the hagioi of the Most High, the saints of the Most High, the consecrated righteous ones who will receive the kingdom when the beasts of the human empires are judged. And Matthew, when he chooses that word, is making a devastating theological wink. He is telling his Jewish readers, what Daniel prophesied has already begun. The consecrated ones who waited for centuries are finally waking up. And there is another layer. In Hebrews, the entire chapter 11 is a list of men and women that the Bible calls righteous. Abel, Enoch, Noah, Abraham, Sarah, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph, Moses, Rahab, the judges, the prophets, the martyrs who were sawn in half. The author of Hebrews ends that chapter with a phrase that few Christians truly understand. He says that all those righteous ones died without receiving the promise, because God had foreseen something better for us, so that they would not be perfected without us. That is to say, they waited. They waited in death. They waited for something to happen so they could enter into their complete reward. And that something was the cross. When Christ dies, the righteous ones of the Old Testament, those who waited for centuries, finally received the signal. The debt was paid. The price was covered. The door between death and life, sealed since Adam, was broken. And yet they still did not come out. Why? Look at what Paul writes in 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 20, a short phrase, devastating. He says like this, "But now Christ has been raised from the dead, the first fruits of those who slept, he has become." First fruits. That
With everything on the I have value mental
word is the key to the entire passage. In Jewish culture, the first fruits were the first of the harvest, the first of the flock, the first of the fruit. It was offered to God before anyone touched the rest. It was an act of recognition. This, the first, is yours. And because I give it to you, all the rest is also consecrated. Paul is saying that Christ is the first fruits of the resurrection. That is to say, the first. If he is the first, there cannot be another before him. Not theologically, not symbolically, not practically. And there you have the answer to why the dead did not come out on Friday. If those bodies had come out on Friday before Christ, Christ would no longer be the first. He would be one more. The entire theology of the resurrection would collapse. The cross would stop being the border between two worlds and would become one more event in a chain. Sunday changes everything. On Sunday, Christ rises. The first fruits is offered. The debt is recorded as fulfilled. And only then, in that exact moment, the righteous ones come out of the caves. They come out because now they can. They come out as the harvest that follows the first fruit, as the army that enters after the general crossed the border first. That seems a boring chronological detail, is one of the most impressive truths that the Bible teaches. It tells you that the resurrection of Christ was not only his resurrection, it was the resurrection of all those who slept in him. When he was raised, they were raised too. The cross was not a private victory. It was a massive victory. And the dead who walked through Jerusalem that Sunday were the public proof. But who were they exactly? Did they have names? Did they have faces? Did the people recognize them? Here is where the conversation becomes tense, because the answer is not what many expect. Look at verse 53 with a magnifying glass. It says, "And coming out of the tombs, after his resurrection, they came to the holy city and appeared to many." Appeared to many. It does not say appeared to some. It does not say were seen by the disciples. It says to many. In Greek, polos, multitudes, large quantities, common people, market people, temple people, people in their houses, entire families. And here enters the second twist. If those resurrected ones had been anonymous figures, people whom no one knew, what sense would it have made for them to appear to multitudes? The appearance has sense if the witnesses could recognize them, if they could point and say, "That was my father. That was my grandmother, the righteous one, the God-fearing one, who died 10 years ago. That man was the rabbi who taught me the scriptures when I was a boy." That is to say, the resurrected hagioi were known people, recognizable, identifiable. That rules out a theory that for centuries some theologians sustained, the idea that the resurrected ones were ancient figures like Abraham or Moses. If Abraham had walked through Jerusalem on Sunday, no one would have recognized him. No one had seen Abraham. 2,000 years had passed. There were no portraits. There was no living memory. The appearance would not have produced the effect that Matthew describes. The most probable, according to conservative exegetes and the tradition of the early church fathers, is that the resurrected ones were recent righteous people, persons that the community of Jerusalem knew. Perhaps Simeon, the elder of the temple who carried the child Jesus in his arms 40 days after his birth. Perhaps the prophetess Anna, who was also in the temple that day. Perhaps Zechariah, the father of John the Baptist. Perhaps Elizabeth. Perhaps Joseph, the adoptive father of Jesus, who had already died by that point in the account. Perhaps your great-great-grandfather, if he was righteous and God-fearing. Matthew does not give names, because the names are not the point. The point is the category, hagioi, consecrated ones, people who lived and died in the faith of the Old Testament, waiting for a Messiah who had not yet arrived. When that Messiah arrived and died and rose, those who slept in that faith were raised with him as proof. Questions remain, and they are brutal. Questions that some preachers never touch because they do not have a clean answer. Let us touch them. First question, those resurrected ones, did they die again? Or did they ascend to heaven with body like Enoch and Elijah? The Bible does not respond directly. Matthew tells that they appeared and then silence. There is no later mention. Acts does not name them, nor the letters of Paul, nor Revelation. This divided theologians for 2,000 years. There are two main positions. The first says that these resurrected ones were raised temporarily, the same as Lazarus, the same as the daughter of Jairus, the same as the son of the widow of Nain. They appeared as public testimony, lived a few days or a few weeks more, and then died again, awaiting the final resurrection together with all the other believers. This is the majority position among modern exegetes, and it is supported by a key detail. Matthew does not use the language of glorification that Paul uses in 1 Corinthians 15. He does not speak of incorruptible body. He does not speak of spiritual body. He does not speak of transformation. He only speaks of bodies that get up, come out and appear, physical, earthly, temporal language. The second position says no. These men and women were raised with glorified body, the same as Christ, and ascended to heaven when Christ ascended, like an army of firstfruits that accompanied the king in his triumphal entry. This position is supported by Ephesians chapter 4, which says that when Christ ascended on high, he led captivity captive. Some interpret that phrase as a reference to the righteous ones of the Old Testament, who were taken from Sheol and elevated to heaven with Christ in the ascension. I am not going to tell you which position is the correct one, because the Bible does not clarify it. What I will tell you is this: both positions have theological sense, and both point to the same central truth. Death was defeated. The tomb stopped being the last word. The Old Testament stopped being a pending promise and became a fulfilled promise. Second question, why do Mark, Luke, and John not tell this episode? If it was so public, if multitudes saw it, if they walked through Jerusalem during days, why does only Matthew record it? The response again is in the audience. Mark writes for Romans. Romans are not interested in Daniel nor in the Haggai